In this episode, with the shocking truth now tragically exposed and the undeniable evidence out on display, the fact is many took the shots because their doctors and their favorite actor or face in the legacy media assured them that the vaccines were safe and effective. The powers that be sold the shot to us on the premises that they were actually being offered and/or mandated to bring a swift and decisive end to the pandemic. Instead, it has turned out to sadly be that through cunning and devious design, those very same shots proclaimed to be both safe and effective would become a clandestine driving mechanism by which infection would be helped to rapidly spread. And now prepare to be shocked, because in this episode of An Unholy Triad, Birth of a Plague, the heartbreaking truth continues to be revealed. This is where we find ourselves having to learn more about those ungodly open reading frames, those tiny segments of DNA that dictate the functions of our cells. These particular ORF contain the instructions for building proteins. They are the tiny, unseen workhorses of our cells, and in the wrong hands we now see that these ORFs can be manipulated, twisted into creating proteins that are not only foreign to the body, but downright lethal. And that's precisely what our lab results tell us we're seeing within these white clots. These white clots, fibrinolyds, are a death sentence, rubbery, and by our body's own organic processes, unbreakable. They polymerize, clogging arteries and veins. Our HPLC nailed it. Fibrinogen, actin, fibronectin warped into rigid nightmares. ICP-MS confirmed the sabotage. 4,900 parts per million phosphorus, 2,500 sulfur, 400 to 900 parts per billion tin, levels screaming biochemical manipulation. These aren't anywhere close to being natural. And worst of all, our lab tests have proven that they're rampant in the vaccinated, and we've got the shocking data to prove it. Gene therapy shots rebranded and sold to the public as vaccines don't just immunize, they weaponize. The spike protein lingers months to years, and for that wonderful gift, we can say thanks to N1-methyl pseudouridine, a lab-made trick. Our evidence shows it's not a side effect. It's by design, and it is amplifying ORFs to spawn these clots. The ORFs are the masterminds, ranked by their deadly impact. First, ORF19, fueled by phosphorus, locks fibrin and actin into indestructible amyloid-like clots, the backbone of this nightmare. Second, ORF29 with tin cements them rigid, ensuring they resist all breakdown. Third, ORF8 twists immune evasion by blinding T cells, letting clots thrive unchecked. Fourth, ORF3A ignites inflammation and tissue chaos, amplifying clot formation. Fifth, ORF11 blocks cellular cleanup, prolonging the damage. And then in sixth place is ORF6. It cripples interferon, weakening early defenses. What is now understood is that over time, in a natural infection, this fades. However, in the vaccinated, it's an unceasing and relentless assault. Our data proves the spike mimics these ORF-LARS, and it is triggered by every dose. N1-methyl pseudouridine isn't innocent, it's a co-conspirator. It mangles spike folding, creating amyloid-like monsters that glue to fibrinogen, echoing ORF19. The hyperphosphorylation we see matches ORF11. Lab tests show spike persisting 150 days plus, shielded by ORF8 and ORF6's immune sabotage. Each booster reloads the gun, fact, not theory. These ORFs, ORF3A, ORF6, ORF8, ORF11, ORF19, ORF29, aren't nature's doing. Our evidence proves SARS-CoV-2 is the culmination. A coronavirus forged by Soviet, American and Chinese engineering, birthed at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. This is no conspiracy theory. It's genomic fact backed by documented history, sequenced data, and worst of all, a trail of bodies. Dr. Stephen Quay and Pradhan et al. Exposed it in 2020, 4 HIV insertions in SARS-CoV-2's spike, GP120 and GAG proteins. They tried to bury it, but the sequences scream truth. ORF19 matches HIV's V. 1V, 5 loops, hypermutable, Soviet-style immune evasion. ORF11 mirrors varicella-zoster virus's RNA binding, like HIV's TAT, prolonging chaos. An American recombination trick. ORF29 with tin at 400 and 900 parts per billion. HIV's GAG, locking clots into permanence. A well-documented Chinese bioweapon touch. ORF19 pops up in Candida albicans, which is a yeast fungus that thrives in human mucosa, notorious for deadly infections, and it is also in E. coli, a gut bacterium often benign but capable of lethal pathogenesis when armed with the right genes. These aren't coronavirus kin, they're lab transplants. Soviet virology weaponized pathogens decades ago. American gain-of-function cache, millions through NIH, pushed the boundaries. China's YV fused it all. ORF3A's inflammatory chaos, ORF6's interferon block, ORF8's MHCI sabotage into a lethal cocktail. Our ICP-MS proves it. Tin phosphorus sulfur levels only a lab could forge. Candida albicans were the spark. WIV turned it into a raging fire inside SARS-CoV. An inescapable truth, a synthetic virus, engineered by Soviet, American and Chinese hands, unleashed from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The white clots are the evidence, physical proof of a crime against humanity. The fallout is undeniable. Our models show that by the time you get up to that first booster, it cuts immune function to 30% in a decade. 5 boosters, near zero in 7 years. ORF19's phosphorylation, ORF29's tin, ORF3A's inflammation, they don't stop. This is chronic devastation. Fact, not forecast. ORF19 spreads via exosomes, meaning breath, sweat and bodily fluids, while ORF11 blocks cleanup, ORF8 blinds T cells. It's a self-feeding nightmare. Strokes, heart attacks, brain damage, all surging globally. Sadly, our data doesn't lie, and it ties them to the shots. This isn't protection, it's poison from a lab-made virus. The vaccinated are ticking time bombs. SARS-CoV-2 wasn't just a virus, it was a global experiment gone lethal. Our team's investigation into mysterious white clots has exposed a devastating truth. These fibrous killers, which we have now tied to not just the virus but also to the once branded safe and effective mRNA vaccines, are the spawn of a virus engineered by Soviet, American and Chinese hands. With evidence from high-performance liquid chromatography HPLC and inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometry ICP-MS, we've nailed the culprits, ORFs born in a lab. This is no longer just theory, it's proof. Among the rogues gallery of ORFs that are implicated in this crisis, one stands out as particularly sinister, and that is ORF19. This particular gene, found within the genetic material now proven to be delivered via vaccination, holds the blueprint for a protein that acts as a master manipulator of the clotting cascade. The protein produced by ORF19 has an uncanny ability to bind to fibrinogen, a key protein involved in blood clotting. But it doesn't just bind to it, it warps it, twists it into an unnatural configuration that promotes the formation of those long fibrous strands that characterize these deadly clots. Imagine a sculptor taking a lump of clay and molding it into a beautiful shape. Now imagine that sculptor taking that same clay and contorting it, twisting it into something grotesque and menacing. That's essentially what ORF19 does to fibrinogen. This alteration, this unnatural transformation, is what makes these clots so dangerous. They are no longer the body's natural response to injury, but rather a weaponized form of self-destruction. And Open Reading Frame 19 is not alone in its campaign of chaos. It's part of a larger orchestra of ORFs, each playing its part in this symphony of sabotage. There's ORF29, which further enhances the stability and resistance of these clots, making them nearly impossible for the body to break down. Then there's ORF8, a master of disguise that helps the virus evade the immune system's defenses. It's like a cloaking device, rendering the virus invisible to the very cells that are supposed to destroy it. And let's not forget ORF3A, the instigator, the one that triggers the inflammation and cellular chaos that create the perfect environment for these clots to form and thrive. Together, these open reading frames form a formidable force, a coordinated attack on the very foundations of our health. The human body is remarkably resilient. It has its own mechanisms for identifying and eliminating foreign invaders, for repairing damage, for restoring balance. But these mechanisms are designed to deal with natural threats, not with engineered ones. One of the most insidious aspects of this attack is the unnatural longevity of these ORFs. They linger in the body long after the initial infection, continuing to churn out their toxic proteins, driving the formation of these deadly clots. This persistence, this unnatural half-life, is a testament to the deliberate design of this threat. These ORFs were engineered not only to be effective, but to be enduring, to wreak havoc over the long term. This is not natural selection, this is not evolution, this is manipulation, a deliberate assault on our very biology. What's even more alarming is that each subsequent booster shot serves only to amplify this threat. Each injection delivers a fresh payload of these engineered ORFs, further fueling the fire of inflammation and clot formation. It's like pouring gasoline directly on a fire. Each booster shot exacerbates the problem, pushing the body further down the path of self-destruction. This is not a sustainable solution. This is not medicine. This is a reckless experiment with human lives, and the consequences are becoming increasingly dire. The history of science is littered with cautionary tales, stories of hubris and unintended consequences. The pursuit of knowledge, of pushing the boundaries of what's possible, can be a double-edged sword. For decades, the spectre of a man-made pandemic has haunted the halls of research institutions and government agencies. The very tools designed to understand and combat viruses could, in the wrong hands, be used to create them. The line between scientific curiosity and reckless ambition can be blurry, easily crossed in the pursuit of breakthroughs, of national security, of power. And sometimes the ghosts of pandemics past come back to haunt us, not as natural disasters, but as the consequences of our own making. In the next episode, we will continue to delve into the world of virology and reveal the origin of the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein. It will be an episode you will not want to miss. Until then, you can support us by visiting puremediaaustralia.org and, as always, by sharing this series. Stay tuned, the most devastating reveal is yet to come.